Today, you are in for a real treat. We are here today with a special guest, Lou Messios of Home Services Insurance. Lou is currently the top 5 in the country in home services insurance. Today, we're going to be talking about the benefits of home insurance and how important it is to begin the process during the transaction. We're going to be covering a ton of different topics, and I'm excited to hear what he has to say while he shares his experience and expertise. So let's get into it. Hi, Lou. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I think the first thing that I want to talk about, let's just talk about a little bit about who you are, your experience, how long you've been doing this.
Yeah, I've been doing insurance for about 10 years. I have a past life, but that led me to be a very good insurance agent that focuses on your insurance needs to make sure that you're not at financial risk of loss, during a claim on a home, for example. So that's what I'm focused on. I focus on not premiums, but coverages. And then since we have 20 insurance companies, we're able to write any property that you're looking to buy and eliminate your risk on all those options that we may have for you.
So I think to point out, you're not just an insurance company like State Farm or Farmers Insurance. You're actually a broker. So you have access to several different insurance companies where you can compare the benefits to get the buyer the best option.
That is correct. So there's a lot of issues that a home might have. The older the home, the more issues that could arise, right? The older the home, the more problems. But if you maintain the home well, that shouldn't be an issue. So based on what the insurance companies want to know, they want to know mostly what the updates on the home are, like electrical, plumbing, HVAC, and the most important is the roof of the home. The older the roof, the more chances that there might be a water leak and cause damage inside your home. The roof is the first point of contact to the elements. So they want to know that the roof is being taken care of, maintained well, and of course the other factors are very important.
So I think let's touch on the roof. So when I first started real estate, I started about 7 years ago, and insurance to me was not something that I thought was super important. I knew it was a part of the loan process. I knew you had to get insurance if you were getting a loan, but it was never something that I considered that needed to be figured out right away. And now it seems like insurances have a lot more requirements. And so one thing that I always make sure that my buyers do during the transaction is that they start looking for insurance and contacting agents, preferably you, to find an insurance on a house. One, to make sure the house is insurable, but two, to make sure that they can also get the mortgage because of the insurance premiums are higher. But also that I feel like there are a lot more restrictions on insurance. So you mentioned the roof. So that's one thing I want to talk about. When I had my insurance, I bought my house 4 years ago. The roof was pretty old. Insurance didn't have a problem with it. And now my insurance company just reached out to me this year and said, we think you have an old roof. We need to come check it. They checked it. It's older than 25 years. So they came and checked it, and they said, we are, in fact, going to increase your premium. So explain, let's start off with the roof, because that's, like you said, basically the big point of the house. Start off with what you're seeing as far as coverage on the roofs.
So let's just cover a little bit about what the insurance industry is going through right now. There was a point in time, and you mentioned it earlier, where it wasn't really an issue to get coverage on a home. So a lot of times, and especially during COVID times, they didn't do any home inspections after we started the policy. So everybody was writing policies, but we were just guessing at the roofs because nobody knew, right? We couldn't be face-to-face at the time, so they weren't sending out inspectors. They would go off of our word, and it caused a problem because when you have a 25 or 30-year roof like you might have, that might cause a leak, right? the insurance company that could have wrote your home probably said something less than 20.
My roof is 32 years old.
It's 32
32 years old. By the way, no problems. I'm keeping it as long as I can, but 32 years.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's actually kind of dangerous because an insurance company, when they reach out to you, they're also going to tell you, we already talked to you about this, and you didn't do anything about it. So,
Really? They
yeah.
never mentioned to me that I needed to get it fixed. They just said we're increasing your premium.
Right. So they're going to send, they're going to send somebody out. Did they send somebody out?
They sent somebody out, and they did, in fact, say, yes, your roof is old.
Okay.
And then my insurance went up.
It went up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Some insurance companies will sometimes send you a cancellation after that inspection. Mm-hmm. It's a good thing that you still have coverage. They may have also stated that you're going to go actual cash value on a roof, so you wouldn't get replacement costs during a claim.
Okay, explain what actual cash value means for people who don't know.
Sure. So replacement cost loss settlement will replace your roof if you had a loss to the roof, right, during hailstorms or wind. With actual cash value, they look at the age of the roof, and they give you the actual value of the roof today, not brand new.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So if it's a $20,000 roof, and they might give you 5%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're telling me I probably should get a roof.
You should probably get a new roof, yes. And do you have a tiled roof? Or?
I have a tiled roof.
Okay. A roof replacement for a tiled roof is considered to be replaced if the underlayment is replaced.
Okay.
The tile portion lasts forever. It could.
Right.
And then you just replace the tile that may be cracked.
Right.
Right? It's the underlayment of the tiled roof that's the most important thing.
And so one thing to point out, too, for buyers that are watching this, Tucson has a lot of different roofing types. I think the main type is a tiled roof with the underlayment that you're discussing and a flat roof. We also have some foam roofs and some shingled roofs on some of our central homes, things like that. But a flat roof is another thing that I'm seeing. So explain. So for my experience of of an agent for a flat roof is basically that the roof needs to be recoated every 3 to 5 years with an elastomeric coating, right? Is it fine if it's been coated within that certain period, or do you actually have to have the whole roof of a flat roof replaced every now and then? How does that work with the insurance company? I haven't run into that. Kind of, I guess I've heard other issues, but I haven't personally run into that. So is that something you're seeing, or?
So the good thing about our agency, we're an independent agency, and we have about 20 insurance companies. Each insurance companies has their own risk appetite. So when we're talking about a flat roof, there's some companies that will not consider the roof recoat as the year of the roof, the last renovation.
Really?
Yes. But we do have other companies that would take the recoat. So that's the beauty of our company. We have options for you one way or another to make sure that the roof is insurable.
Okay.
Right? So normally the recoat is just fine. 3 to 5 years is just fine, and that works well. If it gets over 5 to 10 years on the last recoat, then we have an issue.
So if let's say I'm in the process, I have a buyer, we're in the process of buying a home. Let's say we're in that time frame with the recoat, or we're right around that 25-year time frame with a tiled roof. How does that work for insurance? Do they let you know in advance, you're going to need to do this in a year, your insurance is going to go up, or are they going to have a higher premium, or how do they work around that? Because I'm starting to see in some of these neighborhoods in Oro Valley, they're reaching that point. And so I caution my clients, this might be an issue with the insurance. Is there a workaround, or are they giving some leeway, or is it, no, this roof has to be repaired within a certain time frame or we're not covering you? How does that work?
Right. And the way I write my policies, I fully underwrite the policy before we bind, right? So I talk to underwriters. If there's an issue of the roof, I explain the issue, and they normally tell me what we need to do to correct or rectify a roof issue. And this is why we need to do it during the inspection period, so that if we can't resolve it soon, then you have time to talk with your client and tell them these are your options, right?
Okay.
So that's why it's important to do it during the inspection period. But a lot of people have underwriting issues after the policy. This is something I don't like to do, because working on one policy is never good for your clients, right? That could cause further issues. You have a policy cancellation, and it's hard to move you afterwards. So I focus on every policy. I want to make sure that when we start the policy, you're not going to get any issues, right? So I ask all these important questions. And some people get annoyed. Why are you asking so many questions? I don't know about this. I don't know about that. Talk with my agent. When I do hear that, it's kind of disappointing, because you're buying this home, right? You should know every single little bit about it, right? The type of plumbing you have, copper or PEX. Polybutylene is no good, right? Because most insurance won't cover a polybutylene water leak, right?
Right. I didn't know they wouldn't even cover the water leak.
They won't.
I knew polybutylene is obviously kind of a trigger word when we're looking at houses, but I didn't realize they wouldn't cover a leak. So that's good to know. Generally with clients, I have advised them, or do advise them, about polybutylene and the situation with those pipes, and what to expect, and that's not great. But I did not realize they would not cover a leak from a polybutylene pipe.
That is correct.
Interesting. And this is all insurances?
It's most of the
Most
insurance.
insurances, okay.
I do have a couple of companies that would cover it, but the premiums go up.
Right.
So if you know that it's polybutylene, you should look into replacing those pipes.
Right.
Right. And for a long time now, I've been with Home Services here in Tucson for 5 years now. And as time goes by, I don't hear that there's a lot of homes with polybutylene piping. The only thing I really need is confirmation that it doesn't exist in the home.
Right.
Right? Because if it does, most people do replace them, so the risk is gone. Can you imagine if a polybutylene pipe leaks and they say there's no coverage and the damage is $25,000?
Yeah.
These things are the most important things to worry about as a homeowner, especially on a home that you're buying, right? So that's why I'm very detailed oriented when it comes to that, and I'm a stickler for it. Right? I need to know, because if you have a claim in the future, who do you think you're going to blame? Me.
Yeah. Hopefully you and not me, because
that's right.
But now I know, so now I'm to blame too. So I think that's good to know too, and that's one reason why I wanted to bring you in here, is because real estate is that is what I know. That is my niche.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of moving parts, and insurance is a very important part that people don't think about. So, and there's lots to that. So that's good to know that about polybutylene. Because we do see that here still. You're right. It's not as prevalent as it was at least 7 years ago when I first started.
Yep.
I definitely don't see it as much now. I think people are replacing them, or they haven't sold their house when they bought it that way. But, okay. So any more on the plumbing?
No, the plumbing is good. Let's touch on electrical a little bit.
Yes.
As we said, the roof is probably the most important aspect of the home, but the electrical is also very important. Insurance companies would like to see that there's circuit breakers for the electrical. If there's fuses present or knob and tube, then we might not have coverage with certain companies.
Okay, explain knob and tube.
So it's the old wiring where you see the actual knob and a tube.
A tube. It's actually a knob and a tube.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay.
And
Do you see that a lot here in Tucson?
not in Oro Valley. I mean, when you're talking about Oro Valley, and it's newer construction,
Right.
right? When you get into the foothills, the older homes in the foothills might have fuses and knob and tube, but not too often.
Okay.
Again, just like the plumbing, a lot of people are getting wise to the fact that maybe we should upgrade the electrical.
Right.
So we don't see a lot of the fuses or knob and tube, but they're still out there. And when you're considering central Tucson, that's where you see more of the fuses and knob and tube. They're older construction. They still have the old wiring.
I tell people that Central Tucson is like the wild, wild west with their building and easements and non-permitted stuff there, and then, like you said, that kind of electrical stuff there. So, and I know that that's something that you ask for. So does that make your premium go up, or is that something you require to be fixed before?
So again, I do have companies that would write the fuses or knob and tube. There might be a premium difference, and they're also going to ask us if there's 100 volts or higher, 110 or higher, right?
Okay.
If it's less, then there's an issue. There's no coverage.
Gotcha. Okay.
And these old wiring, the reason why they ask about it is because those older wiring, the fuses and knob and tube, cause fires, right? So they don't want to take on business that might cause a fire or a future claim.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So, and that helps the insurance company not having to pay out the claim, and it helps out the owner of the home to preventing claims. Right. So that's why they're tough on these aspects. Same with the roof. And then one last thing that they ask about is HVAC.
I was going to ask if that's a new thing that they're asking for. I've had that only happen once where the insurance company wanted the HVAC repaired, like a completely new one before close.
Yes.
So tell me about that.
So if your HVAC is 20 or 25 years old, it's towards the end of its life, right? So when they ask for the year, and by the way, all what they want, the insurance companies want to know is the year of renovation, not the exact date.
Right.
Right. And they go based on the year. So if the HVAC is 20 to 25 years old, I've seen denial of coverage altogether.
So I think that seems weird to me that an HVAC is kind of something that's considered, because electrical, and you could probably tell me a little bit more about this, but obviously electrical can be, a fire hazard, a safety concern, as a roof can completely damage the whole house if it's not in good shape. Why an HVAC? It feels like it's kind of a separate thing. The plumbing, obviously, if a pipe busts, it's going to ruin the house. You're going to have a big claim. What is it with the HVAC that is a concern, and why they are considering, the age of the HVAC?
So when you're talking about the home systems that are, running your household, if one of those are not working, it could cause other things to cause a claim.
Okay.
So if it's cold, for example, like in our one of our cold months,
the one cold day we have of the year.
Yeah, the one cold day of the year.
Yeah.
Those could burst pipes.
Okay.
Right. So if it gets down to like 35 degrees one night and you have no heat, it could burst the pipe.
Okay.
Right. Which would cause a water leak. So that sort of ties into what we're doing with insurance.
Okay. And now that you mentioned that, I had, again, when I first started, I've learned a lot since then. I'm a much better agent since I first started. But
You're great, by the way.
Thank you. Did you hear that? But it was mentioned that the house needed to be, if they're vacant, it's summertime, that the house at least needed to be set to 85.
Right.
At the absolute hottest, because some of the stuff on the inside, like the wood, starts becoming affected and things like that. So,
sure.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so all of those four items, the roof, the electrical, the plumbing, the HVAC, all play a role in eliminating claims
Okay.
or the chance of a claim,
Okay.
right? So once we start the policy, you could say, okay, I have coverage. I don't have to worry about it, right? That's not true, right? You should really keep focus on your maintenance because insurance doesn't cover maintenance related problems, right? And especially in this environment where insurance are finally trying to reel everything back in from those um, days where they didn't do inspections
Right.
as often. Today they inspect every single roof, right? So even if you submit a small claim, your rates could increase exponentially. I won't give a percentage or amount because every home is a little different,
Right.
right? And we're trying to prevent those little things from happening. Insurance should be really based off of catastrophic claims. Um, Hail, rain, the $20,000 to $50,000 claims that you might get from weather,
Right.
right, or a water leak. Those are catastrophic.
So, and mentioning that too, I did have a seller one time that had several insurance claims, and they were all tiny claims, but it was every time something happened, they made a claim, and eventually they became uninsurable.
Correct. And then what is also important on that is if you do have a water claim, there are a couple of companies that will not cover you even with one water claim.
Really?
Plus, even if it was from a previous owner, because if there's a water leak, there's something wrong, and they don't know exactly if it has been resolved,
Right.
right? So they just won't take it at all.
So how would I know as a buyer or a homeowner now that whether that's a claim that I want to even pursue? Can I talk to you as my broker? Not that I want every person that's ever gone through you in your whole 10 years to call you one day because they've had a water leak, but how would I know not to do that? Because to me, I would not have known you couldn't have done that. So what are these kind of safety nets for homeowners that may not know that?
So when I talk to clients, I take a consultative view on what their requirements are or needs are. And we talk about multiple items, just like the home updates we talk about, and I start to realize what's happening with that home. And I start to explain what they should expect, right? We still find policies for them, but I also want to give them pointers on what to look into 3, 5, 10 years down the line. Whether it's the roof replacement, you have X amount of years maybe, right? So start thinking about, looking at the roof, replacing the roof.
Okay.
Again, the electrical, the plumbing, that should be top of mind. And the HVAC, okay, those systems last a while, but if they're at the end of their life, I also give them a pointer of you should look into that as well. Because look at what you said. You had the insurance company come out and say, hey, it looks like your roof is getting old. What did they tell you? You should probably look into replacing the roof. And that's what I try to do. I try to be that for our clients. And you and I know that we're more consultative. Mm-hmm. We like to give as much information as possible, and we like to educate our clients so they're aware of multiple factors. This is what I try to do with every single client.
And I think that's a good shout out again to you, Lou. The importance of, having a local agent because you are reachable and you know this market and you know what buyers and homeowners need to look for.
Yes, exactly. And I do have clients that when I'm talking with them, they have dealt with other companies like captive companies, such as State Farm or Farmers, Allstate. Those are considered captive companies that only sell their product.
Right.
Right? It's either a yes or no with them. They have their own risk appetite for writing policies. So, again, that's the benefit of having us, and we have options. If one company is not good or they don't like a certain aspect of the home, we have several others that would cover it. Knowing what is required here in Tucson is very important because a State Farm agent that you may call might not be in the area, or an Allstate agent that you call at their call center. They don't know the market. So they're going to throw coverages together based off of what they were taught
Right.
in their company. Not that I'm trying to bash them or anything like that, but you're not well served.
It's just like using an agent, a real estate agent from another state. They don't know anything about this area. And I think that's, again, not to bash them, but it's a benefit of having a local agent.
It is a benefit, and we're experts in the area.
Mm-hmm. And then one thing, too, I would like to say, because you are my insurance agent, I have my insurance through you, and I get notifications. Like I've owned my house, this current house now, for about 4 years. And when it's time to renew, I get a notification that says, hey, your policy's going to go up, but I found you a better one.
Yes. So I do recommend my clients at least once every 3 years to remarket their policies.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say we write the policy this year, next year at renewal, it goes up slightly or maybe a little more. And you may have had a claim on your home or your auto policy. And I like to remarket it so I could bring back down the premium so you don't realize these large increases.
Right.
So that's part of what we do as an agency. And I give everybody my business cell phone, so it doesn't matter where I'm at, you're going to get assistance. So I'm a good resource for the clients moving forward. And what our agency does, we have our own customer service department. They're wonderful over there. I know every single one of them. They're here in town in Tucson.
I love them as well. Very nice, very patient, very helpful.
Very helpful.
Keeping me up to date on my insurance plan as well.
Yes, and we're here and we saw your notice. We see everything, right? So we get a copy, the client gets a copy, so we're aware if we need to do something on your behalf.
You saw a naughty notice about my 33-year-old roof?
Yes.
32-year-old roof.
Yes.
It's not 33 yet.
So we're able to react fast, right? And not only that, our customer service department and me, of course, are here to help support you as your agent to advise you on a possible claim, right?
Right.
So when you call another company, a captive company, the ones that we talked about earlier, one of the first thing they do is they start a claim before they start even talking to you. So once you start talking to them about a claim, they submit it, and it's on your claims history.
Oh.
Right? And if you do nothing about it, there's a zero payout on that. So when we start to look into your policies, we see all those zero payout claims, and it's a negative towards your
It's a little bit of a blemish on the...
blemish. And then they start asking, why is there a zero claim? What was that all about? So I have to ask what the details are, and it gets a little hairy there. But again, we're still fine.
Right.
But your premiums are going to start going up because of those zero claim payouts, or the zero payout claims.
Wow.
So it's an issue.
I never want to file an insurance claim ever.
Right. So that's why
It's there. That's why you say it's there. It's for catastrophic.
It's catastrophic.
It's a protection for big things, but don't use them just like
Right. So that's why we're here. We're here to support you, answer any questions before we start a claim. We are able to advise you. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we save them from submitting a claim because we give details.
Right.
They handle it.
Okay, so we have covered some really good information. Now let's talk about two topics. One of them I think has come up recently. I feel like kind of around the country, but two, one of them that's very prominent here in Tucson to consider, talking about the floodplain and flood insurance. So when you're looking for a house in Tucson, there are areas here that are in a floodplain. Obviously, something that your realtor can help you make sure that you're not in a floodplain. Or if you are in a floodplain, there are options, but explain the insurance kind of aspect of a floodplain.
Yes. So every home is in a floodplain.
Yeah, that's
I
what
would-
that's what someone said the other day to me. They said every home in Arizona is in a floodplain.
Yeah.
And it is.
But there's a good flood zone and a bad one.
Okay.
So the good one is flood zone X.
Right.
So there's less chance of a flood occurring in the flood zone zone X. Other flood zones such as AE, AO, and others, you would probably need a flood policy.
Right.
The only reason why you wouldn't get it is if there's no mortgage and they don't, and you're not required of getting it.
Right.
I do recommend getting a flood policy because there's a high likelihood of a flood event happening in those off flood zones.
And it is required for a loan.
Yes.
Correct.
We as insurance agents cannot force that upon a client. It's not required by us. If there's no loan.
Okay.
If there is a loan, the group that will tell you need a flood zone is the lender,
Right.
right? And we work directly with the lender to talk about that and find out all the details, because I believe lenders run their due diligence on
They
the
do.
flood zone, and they get everything because they're giving you the money. They want to make sure it's covered properly.
Right.
And of course, we do too. I always recommend it. That's one of the things I look at is where is the flood zone? What's the flood zone on this home?
Right.
And I definitely suggest it if it's in anything other than flood zone X. So as far as the carriers we have the FEMA plan, and we also have third-party flood insurance companies.
So sometimes I see when I'm looking at the flood map, it says flood insurance required. Or is it in a flood zone? Yes. Or is it in a FEMA flood zone? There's two different types. Is that the insurance you're referencing, or am I completely crazy?
So
You
we're
can say I'm crazy.
no. So it's the federal government, FEMA,
Okay.
that dictates and maps it out,
Okay.
and it works with the local governments to hone in on that,
Okay.
right? So Pima County has a flood department, right?
Okay.
And they also work with FEMA, and they do their thing. So it's pretty accurate on every home. And I believe in October 2023, FEMA went to a different standard. They changed the way they rate policies and how they look at properties. Before, they used to need an elevation certificate, right?
Right.
And now we don't require it because they know the longitude, the latitude, the height, where it's located. Is it close to a wash, things of that nature, and they look at it differently now. So, and they have technology they implemented to come up with accurate rating. So the same applies for the third-party insurance companies, which are a lot less expensive than the FEMA plan.
Okay.
And there's going to be some occasions where we're going to have to go with the FEMA plan, but third-party companies that sell flood policies, we use them every single time.
So basically, it's important during this process to make sure that you are checking what kind of flood zone you're in. And like you said, the lender looks at that, but your agent should also be looking at that as well, because that is an additional cost if you are doing a loan.
That is correct. And what I do for agents is I give them a flood determination report.
You have done that for me, yeah.
And I've done that for you and several other agents that requested. So that's within the inspection period, which is very important, right? It's key, actually.
Okay, so we've covered the flood. Let's talk about the fire line. And I think this is a thing that's come to my attention lately. We had the Bighorn fire. Was that 2022?
I believe
2022, I think, is when it was. Fire protection was never really an issue, or at least I had not encountered it until that time. There are now some communities that are denying flood protection or fire protection for the homeowners. So explain what all of that is about.
Yeah, so here in Tucson, we there's a lot of brush, desert plains, and there's no prevention of fire there. So the closer to the to brush you are, the more difficult it is to find insurance, right? So a lot of places in Oro Valley, the foothills area.
The foothills is where I'm seeing it a lot.
Yes, it's happening a lot there. Insurance companies want to make sure that there's fire protection. And one of the things they ask, if they're willing to write the policy, is to cut back all the brush from your home about 50 to 70 feet.
So is this usually homes with a lot of acreage, or is this home closer to the actual mountain? What do you mean when you say brush? Because I could go down to southwest Tucson, and there's
Right. And South Tucson, it has the same type of issues if your home is close to desert plain.
Okay, so it's sort of like the desert plains, and then I guess the mountain, because there's a lot of, obviously a lot of brush there in the mountain. So
Right.
kind of, okay.
And we had the Bighorn fire, and the fire came down. Luckily,
Right.
it stopped at a certain point.
Right.
But the closer you are to the mountain, the worse wildfire type risk you have.
Okay.
And each individual insurance company, again, has their own risk appetite for fire line scores. If you go above their threshold, they will just deny your policy,
Okay.
right? And again, and each company is different. One company might say no because that's their risk tolerance. The other one might say yes. So, and that comes with premium as well. If
Right.
you're considered to be in a high fire line score risk or fire risk, they'll rate for it.
Are you seeing that more lately?
Not more than any time before.
Okay.
If anything, a couple of companies have loosened their
Okay.
requirements.
Okay.
So it's getting, I would say in some companies, it's getting a little better. So it's becoming a non-issue. We as home services insurance, we always talk with our marketing reps, and then they take the information, they go to the actuarial department to talk about it, because sometimes they don't get it right.
Mm-hmm.
And we're here as insurance agents to let them know you're not getting it right.
Right.
And some companies will listen to that. Some companies, it's a hard no.
Again, the benefit of having a brokerage, an insurance brokerage that you are a part of, so you can reach out to a bunch of different insurance, 20 different companies to get that perfect policy.
Sure, absolutely. That's what we're here for. We get a lot of people from the captive insurance companies that come to us because they flat out deny their policies. They don't have other options.
Right.
So where do they come? They come to me with several different options.
Right.
Right. So that's the benefit of being with us. And not only that, just advocating on clients' behalf is a big thing with insurance companies, where we see a decision being made and the insurance company got it a little wrong. We advocate on the client's behalf to get that decision turned around.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know that.
Yes.
You
so
offer so much, Lou.
we do. We deal with these companies, but at the same time, our main focus is the client. It's
Right.
not the insurance company. They have requirements of us. We have a fiduciary duty to the insurance companies to report proper information, right? That's what we're here for. And that's why I'm a stickler for that, all this information we talked about today.
Right.
Fully underwriting before we start the policy, making sure you know everything in your inspection period so you can make your decision, etc. And then we educate. I like to educate. Not that people don't understand insurance.
I mean, I don't. And it's part of what we deal with every day, and I know the basics. But having an expert like you in their corner is something that's invaluable to me and to my clients.
Yeah, and I get a few clients who say, I understand insurance. Just send me the quote. And this is where it comes a little contentious with the client. I say, this is not how I do business. The way I do business is I develop a customized insurance policy for you. And I want to go through all the details, tell you what I find, and give you recommendations.
Right.
Right. And we didn't mention today that we also include endorsements to an insurance policy to cover you for water backup, service line. Nobody knows, apparently, that you're responsible as a homeowner for the underground sewer line from the home to the street.
Right.
Right? So not everybody includes it or knows about it. So these are the type of things that I intuitively add to a policy. And I like to go through all of those options with the client to make sure they understand what they're covered for.
Right.
Right? So when it comes down to me just sending out information or a proposal, it's a no-go for me. It just means that maybe somebody is not that serious about insurance. And I hate to say it, they might not be a good fit for home services insurance.
Right.
Right? So that's the whole purpose. I want that engagement. I want to be able to explain everything and have them make their decision with all the information available to them. They could go with me or they could go with another company.
Right.
So that's how I conduct my business. And I think you know that well.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have now talked about what you look for, age of the roof, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, all these things that you look for that may cost you extra on your insurance. Let's talk about discounts that you can apply to your insurance.
Absolutely. One of the biggest discounts you could obtain is a multi-policy discount.
Meaning auto,
home,
all of that
auto,
bundle.
Umbrella. By the way, we also offer life insurance.
Oh, nice. I did not know that.
Yeah, and commercial insurance. A lot of people have home businesses.
Okay.
And some other people have other types of business, and we can write that as well.
Okay.
But the home and auto and umbrella bundle provides about a 25% discount. Some other companies, it's higher than that. So that's a benefit.
25% discount?
Yes.
That's pretty good.
It is. I've seen it where it's about 50% if you write just the home.
Okay.
And when you bundle it, you save up to 50%.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's significant. So that's number one. Number two, a lot of people don't understand why their premiums might be higher. Mm-hmm. And a couple of factors people should be aware of is if their credit rating that the insurance company determines on their own by doing a soft pull.
Insurance company can do a soft pull on your credit?
They do soft pulls on credit.
I did not know that.
Yes. And what they look for is if you have any open unpaid balances.
Okay.
Or have a poor paying habits.
Okay.
So when they see those poor habits or bad credit rating, they raise the rates because they think there's higher likelihood of the premiums not getting paid.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
So the credit score that they develop is about 30% from what I've heard from a couple of marketing reps at insurance companies.
Okay.
So that's one thing they should worry about. And of course, when they're getting a loan, let's say they're getting a loan on a home, the lender's probably telling them the same thing.
Right.
Right? So they're well aware of what they should be doing moving forward. It might be bad this year, but if they correct their finances in the next year or two, insurance rates should be better for them.
Okay.
Right? So that's one thing. So multi-policy discount, your credit rating is also a big deal. Some of the other discounts, I'm going to touch on that. There's a discount for if you're married,
Okay.
right? If compared to if you're single, it's a very small discount, but that exists.
Maybe I should reach out to you on that too, or maybe it's already been adjusted on my insurance because I was not married when I had home insurance.
Okay.
And
It's-
now I'm married, and now we have a home, and I have not revisited
Yeah.
the insurance on that. Maybe I could get a discount from you, Lou.
Maybe you should get your policies remarketed.
I should. It might be that time anyway, but I think maybe I need to wait till I get my roof done. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah. So I would say those two items are the biggest two things. Multi-policy discount.
Multi-policy, credit,
Oh, yeah, and credit.
yes.
Yeah, those are the two major factors of discounts. If you have great credit, you're going to get a great score or a rate
Okay.
and rate, I should say. So there's other things we could do, and that's part of me having a consultative phone conversation or in person discussion. We'll be able to flush out more of these discounts because everybody's a little different. Every home is different, and all risks are different. So I have several different conversations.
Right.
Right.
I think every situation is unique. Every house is unique. There are lots of options.
Yeah. And a lot of people say, my home in Wisconsin is a lot less than what you're charging me, right? Insurance in Wisconsin and Arizona is completely different
Right.
risk profile. You know, Wisconsin's cold half the year. Tucson's not that cold, right? So that we have other types of possible claims that could occur from covered perils that we offer. And each state has their own insurance department. So based on that, you can't compare one state to another, right?
Right.
Some people,
It's just like real estate transactions. The real estate transaction in Wisconsin is completely different than a real estate transaction in Tucson.
that is correct. Yeah, and I just wanted to touch on that primarily, right? So I will be able to discuss that with clients when we're having that phone conversation. It helps me come up with the best option, and it helps the client understand what we're doing for them because I would like to offer great service, right? Coverages that they understand and are happy with. So I don't overcover them. I don't undercover them.
Right.
Our agency, it's all about helping our clients understand everything insurance and to make sure that we're not taken advantage of or you're not taken advantage of
Right.
in any aspect. So I'm very straightforward, and I give the information as I see it and understand it in this current insurance environment,
Right.
right? And it's in flux today. The insurance department or industry is going through some changes. Will it get better at some point? I would say absolutely, but they're still working out a few things.
Right.
So it's not completely negative. And most people understand what's going on. Inflation is an issue.
Well, the market is ever changing. You know,
It's
just
ever
like
changing.
mortgage rates, just like insurance. It's always,
Yeah.
Revolving or evolving with current situations.
That is correct. And let's face it, the cost of labor and material is always going up. We're in inflation. And the insurance industry is a lagging industry. Everything else went up before insurance.
Right. That's
Right.
true. That is true.
Yeah, so we're just experiencing it now at this point.
Right.
So it'll get better, and we have the solutions to keep your
Right.
premiums as low as possible. I don't sell based on premium either. I sell policies, or I write policies based on financial risk, right? Eliminating your financial risk of loss.
Right.
That's the main thing.
Right. Lou, thank you so much. I think that was very informative. Insurance is such a hot topic right now, and I think it's important to know as much as you can as a consumer. As a client of mine, I operate my business very similarly. It's important to educate our customer, educate our client so that they know what to expect during this process. And I really appreciate you taking the time and giving us your knowledge and your expertise so that everybody can be more informed.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure. It was great talking to you about this.
And remember, guys, he's number 5 in the nation.
You're making me blush.
It's the cappuccino. All right, guys, thank you for joining us. If you found this useful, found this valuable, hit that subscribe button and hit that like button, and I'll see you on the next one.